Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew, Keith Johnson.
You can analyze people, not the same as connecting with them.
And Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And welcome back, Keith.
Thanks.
Yeah, we missed you last week.
Thank you. I miss you guys too. As people probably know from Facebook, I had my own astronomical space occurrence. I went back home to Dallas Fort Worth to see the solar eclipse. And yeah, believe in God or not, that was spiritual.
Well, tell us about it, because you traveled out to Texas to see it in totality.
Yeah, it was in 2017 here in Atlanta. I elected not to drive to North Georgia like I should have. And then I know when it happened, I just kicked myself. So I got online and instantly said that, hey, in 2024, it was going to be in Texas, which is my home, Dallas Fort Worth. So I was like, if I'm still alive, then I'm going to go. And so it was funny because my brother and I got in some little minor beef last week. He was kind of like mad. And I was like, crap. Well, I'm going to have to make up real fast because I'm going.
I'm sorry, man. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Can I still stay at your house?
Right. And weather forecast was rain. And over the course of like 2 weeks, the rain went from at eclipse time and kept getting pushed down, but the cloudiness stayed. And it was always going to be 40 to 50% clouds. So I was thinking that this once in a lifetime thing, half the sky would be clear, and half the sky would be cloudy, and the wrong half would be cloudy.
Right.
And it ended up being perfect. As a matter of fact, the only cloud that obscured the eclipse happened literally when the moon left the sun.
Wow.
So we got lucky.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was amazing.
Yeah. Now, you were telling us off mic, your wife Phyllis came with you, and she wasn't as enthused about going as you were. But What did she think seeing it in person?
She kept saying, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow."
Yeah.
And then my oldest brother the same way. He thought it would be okay. I think what happened, so many people had seen partial eclipses of the sun, and they thought it was the same thing.
Right.
And then they saw it. And
totally
my brother,
different.
It is, yeah. My brother literally, he goes, I didn't, and he just couldn't say anything else. I didn't know. And Phyllis just going, wow. It was something else.
Yeah. It's hard to see with your own eyes.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like seeing something in a sci-fi film, but there it is. It's amazing. Yeah. That's great. I'm glad you were able to make it out there and go, and I'm glad that the weather cooperated with you.
It was perfect. It was great.
I was messaging you right after, like, how was the eclipse? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
All right. So did you have any This Week in Trek for us this week?
Yeah, it was an interesting week. Like nothing ever happened in the world except this stuff. It was a real interesting week. It was a lot of interesting. I found a lot of first and last. Going back to the 8th of April, 1993. We've talked about this before as one of the best episodes, but the last day of filming, and I read some interesting stuff where people on the staff of the show didn't yet know what the show was going to be. This is a show, you know where I'm going with this when I say this. This is a show that hadn't yet found its footing from TNG. Okay. And there were so many people who said it seemed like it was a bad TNG ripoff, and it never went anywhere. And some of the shows were criticized as being weak, like TNG rejects. Mm-hmm. But then on this day, April 8th, 1993, they finished filming Duet.
Wow.
They wrapped it.
That was a turning point.
Yes.
For the show and finding it. So that wasn't the first episode that was good. There was good episodes before that. But like Captive Pursuit with Toss could have been a TNG, or Babel could have been a TNG. But, you know, I mean, Duet was one, and immediately followed by In the Hands of the Prophets, like week to week. And I mean, those were specifically only Deep Space Nine could have done those shows.
Absolutely. And the Nana Visitor, I listened to an interview with her. She was on the Delta Flyers, and she talked about it. And she said it was interesting. She said almost the entire run of the show, she kept thinking she was going to get fired, because if you remember, this was back in the 90s, and women just didn't have roles like her, and what Terry Farrell's role became with Jadzia Dax. And she kept saying, this has got to be a mistake. And when she did Duet, she said, are y'all sure this is a Star Trek episode? Because it just didn't seem like what she expected.
Yeah, I was just watching an interview with her the other day, and she was saying that the same thing she says, but that when she first read the script, when her agent sent it to her for the show generally, and she thought, oh, there's been a mistake. This character's a man. And was like, no, they want a woman for this part. Yeah. And she said that she was, instead of being a girlfriend or, you know, a lover or something like that, she's basically playing John Wayne. Yeah. And that was something that she relished throughout the run of the show.
Absolutely. And of course, and one of the great discussions, what could have been, we all know Michelle Forbes, Vincent Rowe was the
Right.
choice for the role that Kira Nerys became. Would have been different. I think they both would have been excellent, but Nana Visitor knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely.
Ironically, April 8th, exactly 3 years after the last day of filming on Duet, first day of filming on a little movie called First Contact.
Hey,
Which
I
is
like
amazing.
that one.
Yeah. I was interesting. I was reading reviews and about it. I didn't realize how many people don't like First Contact, and
they're wrong.
They don't like it because they start babbling that it's not a Star Trek movie because Picard's like carrying a Tommy gun and all that kind of stuff. Some people say it's when they diverge from what Star Trek should have been for movies, at least. Yeah,
I can see that. I mean, I love
right. I was looking like, what?
I've said this before on the show. If there had never been any movies and you went straight from TNG and they made First Contact today, I'd probably be saying that. Like, oh, this isn't. They're all wearing gray uniforms and they have a battleship and he's carrying a phaser and swinging from the thing. Like this isn't what Star Trek is supposed to be. He cracks the Borg's neck at the end. Like this is Picard, not John McClane. So I mean, I get it when people say that, but luckily I was 15 at the time and I thought it was super cool.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I was reading about this, and I guess I didn't realize this. Remember this: the Borg Queen was a last minute addition. The original scripts did not call for Borg Queen at all. The original script that Ronald D. Moore and company worked on, and Michael Piller evidently advised on, was called Star Trek Renaissance. Because Rick Berman, being Star Trek, he wanted the time travel because they love time travel. So the original idea was that the Borg were going to go back in time to Renaissance era Italy, and they were going to fight them there. And Data was like going to hang out with Da Vinci or Michelangelo, whichever one it would have been.
As long as they cast John Rhys Davies as Da Vinci, that would be okay. They could team up with him and fight the Borg with like a flying machine.
All right, and then the other option was it was something like Star Trek Civil War. They were going to go back to the time. Now it's starting to sound like the old series Time Machine, where you always somehow end up going back in time to in real life, if you time travel, you probably show up in the middle of nowhere and nothing happens. Yes. But on time travel shows, they always show up where Capone is. They always show up on the Titanic. So that's what the movie was like.
Yeah, no, I think what really brought the show home, what the film home at the end, was what they call they jokingly call it the Star Trek nativity scene, when Zefram Cochrane meets the Vulcans. And that's even if you all you know Star Trek is that the guy with the ears and Captain Kirk. Yes. The guy with the ears and Captain Kirk. You know what I mean? So seeing the aliens come out and pull their hoods down in their Vulcans and they shake hands, and you get it. No matter what your level of interest in Star Trek is, you get what's happening in that moment. Like, this is the start of Star Trek.
Yep. Exactly. And it was funny because I remember watching First Contact when it came out, and my wife and some other people, they kept saying, remember the whole thing, Riker and them kept saying, oh, the aliens. And it was funny because my wife didn't know who the aliens were. And so it's funny for people who aren't fans, that might have been a surprise. And then, of course, for some reason, it makes no sense. Like, everybody in the movie, all you do to need to hide yourself in the movie is to put a cloak over your head, a cowl.
That may come back later.
Yeah. And for some reason, I don't understand, the Vulcans maybe they didn't want to shock him. Comes out with the thing over his head, but then he takes it off. He kind of rips it off. So it's like, dude.
Yeah, he's dramatic.
Yeah.
He's a flare. Yeah. Before he got out, he was like, hey, watch this. It's going to freak him out.
Yeah. Now, slight spoilers for those who've never seen Enterprise, but I think at least people know there is a time travel. Well, there's an alternate universe Enterprise episode that deals with the mirror universe. And they have let's just say they have a really cool spin on First Contact.
Yeah.
That's scene. Okay, moving forward, one more day. Here we go again. Synchronicity. April 9th, 1990 was the first day of filming on, here we go, another little episode, The Best of Both Worlds.
Oh.
Yeah.
They're knocking them out of the park.
Yes. Yeah. They were hitting their stride right then and there. Another excellent episode. Probably the best cliffhanger in Star Trek history. Not that Star Trek was known for cliffhangers in the first place.
Yeah, but and one of the great cliffhangers in television.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching it and people talked. Of course, this is in the days before streaming. This is in the days where you literally had a summer break. And as you know, those who were following what were then bulletin boards and fanzines knew that Patrick Stewart was in negotiations and didn't know if he was coming back. So it was very possible that Jean-Luc Picard was going to die, and that Riker would have taken over as captain.
Right.
Yeah.
Would have been interesting.
Absolutely.
And then 11 years later, 2001 was the first day of filming of Endgame, which is a fun episode of Voyager. It's the end of the series, of course.
Yeah, it's hard to follow Best of Both Worlds with Endgame, but you know, it has its good and bad. I'll say that.
Right. Yeah, it's got the time travel. It's got a lot of the Temple Directive stuff. I'm one of those people who I get how you. One of these days we're going to talk about Stargate, and one of the is an incredible preview of that. One of the things I notice a lot with Stargate is a lot of their episodes just kind of end. Like they just end. And like, well, what happened? And the thing about Endgame Voyager, this won't ruin it for anyone. When they get there, hey, Alan.
What's up?
Alan made it.
Yeah.
He was in a time tunnel.
Totally.
And let's just say I've always wanted to see a follow-up to the end of Voyager, because they're literally like, we made it, and that's it. And that's not a spoiler. So I like Endgame, but I'm incredibly frustrated how Endgame ended.
we're kind of getting that with Prodigy now, though. Amazing.
Yeah.
When Endgame happened, I never would have guessed that all these years later I'd be finding out what happened to Janeway and Chakotay and the Doctor and so forth. Yeah, I mean, so it's amazing, but it's actually, you know, sort of happening now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind who wouldn't mind sitting through a whole episode where the Judge Advocate General has, like, you know, like you see those bad courtroom movies or mob movies, like all the mobs, there's like 20 mobsters. I wouldn't mind seeing like all the Maquis, even though I think they pardoned them. I don't know if they pardoned them before they got the Earth. It'd be interesting to see like all the Maquis in the courtroom with Chakotay up front, but they're trying to decide what to do with them.
Right.
And that's this week in Trek history.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Now you missed last week, and so you missed talking about the first 2 episodes of Discovery of this season. Now Alan's back. I wanted to just get this comment real quick. Our friend Matt Sweatman said Alan had a meeting and had to describe himself in 20 words or less.
And I love to talk, so that's a difficult task for me.
Absolutely.
Oh, Matt, we got a Jellicoe contender.
So before we get into this week's episode, Keith, what was your take on Discovery last week?
I thought obviously the opening was interesting when Michael was basically surfing in warp space, and she's kind of got this kind of, you know, that kind of adventurer thing, like, oh, never a dull day or whatever it was she said, or never gets dull or something like that. I thought it was pretty good. Definitely more lighthearted this season. You can tell, even though it's very serious. And even though they're doing yet another galaxy or, you know, universe or super critical thing, I never expected it was the progenitors from TNG. I never expected that one at all. I guess that resonates with more people. I mean, I like that episode, but I guess they think it resonated with people more than it does. And maybe because any fans, you know, when you do the nitpicking thing, as everybody says in science fiction, why does everybody speak English? Why is everybody bipedal? Why is everybody humanoid? You know, because it has to be, you know. And I'm sure Americans always say, why does every alien speak with a British accent? British probably say, why does everybody sound like they're from Texas in outer space? So I thought it was kind of interesting they did bring the progenitors thing in. When I wrote my notes, the one thing I wrote was Book is back. And then I wrote, and don't screw this up again with them. I hated what they did with him and Book. I just absolutely hated that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I feel about Rayner yet, and today didn't help. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure about him. Yeah, he kind of came in as like, you know, your standard jerk, your standard, not by the book, but your standard doesn't care about people. So I think at some point in the future there will be a Jellicoe versus Nechayev versus Rayner for Butthole of Starfleet. Overall, I liked it. I'm not sure where it's going. Oh, the one thing I did note, and I noted that Michelle Paradise wrote the openers. I did feel that imbalance again, where you'd have some action and then they'd start talking and they get really emotional, and then you'd have the action again. And I think it's not even that the scenes are necessarily bad, but it feels very unbalanced to me because the action does go a little bit. But overall, and I'm loving Saru's romance. I'm
it's so adorable.
Yeah. So overall, I liked it. Jury's out.
Okay. All right. Did you want to give us a spoiler warning to take us into episode 3 of season 5, Jinaal?
Spoilers. Whoop, spoilers. Whoop, spoilers. Whoop, spoilers.
I was starting to wonder if you're going to say spoilers because sometimes you forget that part. Spoiler warning.
I'm going into alert mode.
Get distracted by the noises you're making.
I know.
Well, Discovery's back again. What do we think of Discovery this week? Anybody?
It was interesting.
Okay.
I liked how they brought back that thing that they did with Jadzia. I don't remember what it's called now.
The Jankara or whatever it's called.
Jankara, yeah. And how they can apparently just do it anytime.
Yeah, it's actually pretty easy because in DS9 it was relatively simple. A dude flew out and did some stuff, and there it was.
Some words and
yeah.
Yeah, the trill stuff always just seems to be whenever they want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that one time it was like her previous host was helping her track an assassin or whatever. Esri.
Oh yeah.
And they did a Jankara last year on Discovery to get Gray into that synth body.
Oh, that's true.
So
yeah.
They're ready when they Mr. Z is ready to show up and do a Jankara at a moment's notice.
It's also, as you say, Charles, because it's so true. The trill rules also whatever they want them to be when they want them to be. Because if you remember,
Star Trek aliens, though.
Yeah, right. Like the number one rule of trill was supposed to be that a trill of symbiote never returns to the life of its host. Well, heck,
yeah, but they didn't say that until after she'd been hanging out with her old best friend Cisco for 6 years.
Exactly, and then all of a sudden, hey, this is not supposed to happen. And so but I was thinking it's interesting philosophically if it's that easy to pull the old personality out and put them in a body. If for those who remember from Deep Space Nine, Curzon didn't want to go back when he had bonded with Odo's body. Then what are the legal implications? Because if you can come out again and live again in another body, why would you want to be stuck in that weird state in the body with all the other personalities? And that was what Curzon. That's what Curzon did. DS9. He didn't want to go back.
Yeah,
which is weird.
I get the impression though that like the Trill wouldn't allow that to happen because it's not like it didn't seem like it's a joining. It's like a possession in that case. Like when they put the spirit in, like it wasn't half Odo and half Curzon. It seemed like it was just Curzon. And this one, it was just Jinaal.
Yeah, it wasn't Tuvix.
Yeah, but it's not like it's not like you're joined but with only one previous host. It's like you've just lost the control of your body to a previous host who already had their chance at life.
Yeah, although Culver seemed to well, we're jumping ahead a little bit. Culver seemed like it was some weird spiritual experience with him. So I wonder if given a choice would he have stayed?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. And I don't think I would care for having someone else running my body unless they're just better at it than I am.
Right.
Yeah, if you can make me a millionaire and I'm just along for the ride, awesome.
Right.
Yeah, with our luck, they'd probably go to like work and tell your boss he sucks and tell people off.
I really liked his performance in this one though.
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah. He was just playing a different guy.
Yeah. It was very, very good.
I like that because he seems to be a very sort of buttoned up kind of guy, so he literally opening up his collar and swaggering around. I thought he was really good.
This guy really works out.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, he the other times when he's had stuff to do, he reminds me one of the things we've always talked about with Discovery, which seems to be you feel it more with stuff like DS9 and other, TNG, is when characters like him get to do something, you lament more the fact that they don't get to do more. Because every single time that man has gotten a role, whether it's with Stamets, just they're discussing their relationship or being a counselor, I'm amazed at what an incredibly good actor he is. I wish we could see him more.
Yeah, and you get used to watching someone in one role and sort of forget that they're a performer who can do a lot of things. And so it's really great for sci-fi that is able to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So here's a comment from Matt who says Wilson Cruz said in the ready room that he was trying to do Jack Palance in City Slickers.
That's awesome.
That's hilarious. That's great.
Now it is one of my pet peeves that when she was like, they're like, well, what was it like? And he's like, there are no words for it. Why was it like 5 o'clock and the writer had somewhere to be? So there's no words for this. Like, isn't that the writer's job is to come up with the words? I hate when they do that. Oh man, it's lunch already.
I was thinking when he said that, I was like, but I understand how it is. I mean, I've never experienced it, but I can imagine it because I've read books where that's happened to people and it's been described. So there are words.
But
There
you
are
know,
words.
that goes back to the the third movie or fourth movie, I don't even know, where Spock is back and you know McCoy had his katra in his head or whatever it was, and he's like, so what was it like? What was death like? And Spock's like, dude, I can't tell you, you know, you have no frame of reference. And McCoy is like, so you can't tell me what death is like because I've never died.
Yeah.
Spock is like, that is correct.
But that at least is funny. That's a clever way to get around it. Instead of just saying there's no words for it.
Right. Yeah, well, let's just wait till it happens to you and see if you can come up with words.
I'll come up with words. I may not be able to say them on the podcast, but I'll come up with some.
Oh God.
But no, I enjoyed seeing Trill again. I thought the first visit to Trill on the whole was better. I mean, this one was last time it was like lush gardens and flying fish and things, and this time it was a rock quarry. So
yeah,
it was a different part of Trill.
Right.
But at least 3 episodes in a row now, we have done location shooting, and that's great.
Yeah. I think they've already had as many planets as the last 2 Star Trek seasons that came in live action.
Right.
Which is fun. Which means we'll probably
Yes,
get a
it
ship
is.
show next week. They're gonna run out of planet budget, so we'll probably get ship shows here for a bit.
Right.
But I've enjoyed it while they have been going to planets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every time
Definitely.
they go back to Trill, I'm reminded of a thing that continues to pop up on the internet over and over again, which is because you always say this: who was the first, and how the heck did it happen? Because the Trill, who was the first to join with a Trill,
Right.
and how? Because they obviously
Right.
didn't evolve. They didn't evolve in parallel where they needed each other. It seems like it's just an ability. So how did the first one happen? Did somebody, I don't know, get stabbed and fall in the pool or what? I mean, it's weird.
Right.
Hey, watch
Or-
this.
See, 'cause in my head, it's like, ooh, what is this thing? I wonder what it would feel like if I put it here.
Oh boy.
Far.
Yeah. That sounds like a different movie or a different show.
Yeah, and it could also be that the Trill were once parasitic, and they've learned to live.
I'm sure that's what it
harmoniously.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So literally
Matt
somebody
says-
fell in.
Sorry, Matt says, I was afraid they were going to run into Doctor Who filming in a rock quarry. Right.
Yeah. So this week, I mean, last week we talked about it was quite Indiana Jonesy, and then this week was more like a fantasy quest, where it was like solve
Yeah.
the riddle and meet the old woman in the cave, and then go out to the dragon's lair, and where the eggs are. Like it is right out of a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I thought I was playing D&D for an hour.
Yeah. I gotta admit, I did write down that this gives you a chuckle because you're going to take what you think is perhaps the greatest technology in the universe, and you're going to, first off, I don't know, the whole thing, like they always split it up into pieces. Like it's the worst thing ever, so we'll split it up into pieces. And then what if you get like a really evil guy who's really good at riddles or puzzles? Because when he goes, what does the fourth point to? Well, you could guess, because remember the other one's already going to Beta Z, and she goes, oh, well, this and this and this and this. Like somebody else could go, Beta Z. What if it had been right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I had that thought too. Like, well, that's a lame clue because all it establishes is that you've already been to the first clue. But maybe that's the point, to ensure that you've already been to the first clue, which means that you found the diary, so you have the pieces, and so it's someone who's following the path and not just someone who heard about it and showed up there.
Yeah.
But I mean, also, I don't know. I liked the adventure. I would guess that someone like say if Sloan or Ducat had showed up looking for it, like at the Dominion War, like they could probably have gotten the clue, but both of them would have just blasted those laser moth things and tried to take it. Like they would have all have failed that.
Yes.
Like I'm sure Sloan could figure out the clues and make his way to find Jinaal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wondered about that. I was, I don't know, I was probably getting too deep into it. I was thinking about that, but then I was like, I've also think things where bad guys pretend to be good. So it just seems like a really iffy way to hide a power where people have to solve riddles and prove that they're good people. But I will say back to what we guys saying about Wilson Cruz acting, even though it was kind of ridiculous and it was really stereotypical, him just like literally lounging on a rock while they were about to get killed, I just laughed. It was so predictable. It was so funny. And they're like, if we had done the wrong thing, would you have let us die? Like, yeah.
I don't know if he could have saved him.
Yeah.
Well, I know, right?
I expect him to say, I don't even have a phaser. You're on your own in there.
Speaking of weapons, the little things the bugs shot out, I felt like it should have done more damage to Book than it did, because it looked like a giant fire dart with a whip on it.
Yeah, it's like a lightning harpoon.
Yeah, it was enormous.
Yeah,
but it ended up being like a 1 foot little thing sticking out of it. You're like, oh, it's so bad, I'm gonna pull it out of you. No.
Well, yeah, do pull it out and leave there. But
right.
And she had the dermal regenerator, but yeah, I mean, dramatically, it didn't have any consequences. He got shot with it, and then they escaped from there.
Yeah,
they did have the same problem that the lower deckers had in the cave, where the comm patch wouldn't work because of the rocks.
Right.
The rocks.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Isn't it amazing? Like, they have all this technology. They'll go into a cave that's literally like, they'll go like 10 feet into the cave. Transporters fail, sensors fail. I thought that was kind of, you're right. It's always, the rocks.
Right. Yeah. If these rocks wouldn't hear our 32nd century technology, might save us. We didn't plan for rocks.
Yeah. But Veronica, you're right. I was thinking about insects, like a lot of insects and stuff. Their stingers are barbed. So I think it's been barbed.
That's what I was thinking about when she was like, I'm gonna just pull it out. Because I remember when the other one stuck in the rock, there were little like barbed things on the base of it. Like a barbed arrow.
Yeah.
Oh.
I also thought it was kind of convenient and nice that what'd you call them, the laser moths? That once the book said, hey, we didn't mean it, they're like, okay, bye. Because some creatures were just like, we're going to kill you anyway because you're in the area. So it was nice.
I did like when the first time he tried to communicate with him and he had like a Counselor Troy level deduction where it's like, what did you find out? They're really mad. She's like, well, gee, thanks.
They're blocking me, but they're really mad.
Right.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, he had the Counselor Troy school empathic abilities. Yeah, but I like their whole storyline. This one we had like a plot, a B plot, a C plot, a D plot. They all had kind of the same theme about connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But I thought they were balanced fairly well. I've said, I mean, basically since they came on the show, that I like Adira and Gray. But I think that they're squandering the potential of those characters.
Yes.
I thought it was kind of a waste today. I mean, for one of these characters is supposed to be like 18 or something. And I don't know if you guys had any relationships or breakups when you were 18, but it's like way more dramatic than that, where it's like, I think we can break up. Okay.
They really came to that conclusion super easily.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the fact,
even without the histrionics that you would expect at that age, it was still like 3 sentences in and they've broken up.
Yeah. So you think we should break up? Oh, okay. Well,
I guess you're right.
I'll always be here for you. Goodbye.
To me, it seemed like neither one of them wanted to break up, but thought the other one wanted to break up.
I didn't think they really played it like that. I just sort of, it kind of reminds me, like, you remember back in the TNG days when there was Roddenberry's box, and then Michael Piller took over and he was sort of stuck with Roddenberry's box, where he didn't, like, he had to write characters in the way that he felt was non-confrontational and not believable. And even that famous story where Ron Moore had pitched the story about the kid whose parents died. We were just talking about a few weeks ago. And Roddenberry's sort of take was that, well, the kid would just, they accept death in the future. He would be sad about it. But I feel like they're kind of doing that sort of thing on Discovery now, whether they know it or not, where it's like, no, we would all be really, enlightened, and it'd be a mutually respectful breakup, and they would just say goodbye and leave.
So for all the people who have argued against Discovery for all these years about it not having any clue and not holding up to Gene Roddenberry's vision, it turns out it is the truest to Roddenberry's vision.
Right.
At least with those two.
Yeah. And also with Adira, like, they're a Trill, and that's almost never a part of the story. And we had a few little bits of it today, but I mean, they're on Trill, and that's where the breakup happens. And they should, and plus, Culber is one of the space dads. They should have just gone on the adventure, and then over the course of the adventure, determined that they don't want to be together anymore, instead of just sitting in the cave and talking about it. I don't know. I feel like they could have done way more with those characters, and I still like them. I like the actors. I think they're very sweet characters, but
sweet
I would like to have more from them.
Yeah. Elaine says, but I think Adira is going to have a harder time with it. I think so too. They didn't look super convinced that it was the thing to do. Gray seemed way more at peace with it.
Yeah. Well, and I hope so. I hope I don't want them to be moping about it the rest of the season or anything.
God, please not.
But I would like because they give lip service to the fact that Culber and Stamets have been taking on paternal roles, but you almost never get anything from that. Like, I feel like if Jake had his first breakup on the show, Ben would have had some kind of talk with him about it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hope that at the very least, it gives Culber and Stamets a reason to parent or, give their advice and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, because Jet Reno, her only scene was in talking to Adira and then chastising Stamets for not parenting. And he really didn't understand what she was talking about. Like, he just didn't get it.
Right.
And I thought, what a strange way to leave that scene. But if that's going to play out into the next episode where Stamets does take some time to actually parent Adira, then I think it'll be worthwhile. I think there'll be some payoff for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How old is the symbiote in Gray? I forget.
Well, the symbiote's in Adira still.
That's right.
Yeah, Gray was the former host who had died and now has his own body. I mean, like 300 years or something. I don't know if there's an exact date, but several hundred years.
Because the reason I was thinking,
well, no, you know what? It's more because when they showed the previous incarnations of Tal that time on the holodeck, and it was stretching back to a dude who was in like the Picard season 1 uniform.
Yeah.
So got to be almost as old, like almost 800 years old.
Like the one they were talking about. Because I was wondering was the point was, and you can write it either way, is sometimes with maturity, you just recognize things are over faster. But also, it's kind of what you were saying, Charles, sometimes with maturity, like they said, we're different. That doesn't mean we have to break up. So I also thought it was a little too soon because, like it happens to everybody. You get a different job, things happen, and you sometimes find a new relationship within yourselves. And I didn't think, but then at the end they were holding hands. Was there anything to come for that? Or was that a goodbye hand holding?
That was a goodbye.
Yeah, I think it's a goodbye. I don't think
that was we're still best friends. We still care.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah. Okay. And I was wrong. I misspoke a minute ago. It wasn't the holodeck. It was during that Trill ceremony in the caves the last time they were there in season 3 when they saw the vision of all the previous hosts.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I would wish we would have got more out of Adira and Gray. I still like the actors, and I don't think that unless Tilly is going to mentor Adira in some way, I don't think we need 2 Tillys to finish each other's sentences. Just one at a time would be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so since we bring up Tilly, let's get to my favorite part of the episode, and that is Tilly challenging Weird Ears, and especially that scene toward the end where she just dresses him down.
In 20 words.
Oh my God. That was my favorite scene of the whole episode where she's like, "You are being a giant." Well, that's 20 words. Oh my God. That was so great. But her reaction to him just being so curt and just dismissing people, where she's like, "So what?" was amazing. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. For one, when she took him to the bridge and introduced everybody, and I had the thought, like the Peter Capaldi doctor, like, are you the same people as before? Like, I didn't recognize several of them. Like,
I didn't either. Yeah. Right. It was the Delta shift.
Now that exactly. But here's the thing. Now that you bring that up, that's my least favorite part of the episode, because my absolute love for Detmer and Owo. So they get lip service, they get name checked in dialogue, but they're not there again for a second episode in a row. Yeah. What is the point of introducing an entire new set of bridge characters that they're not going to do squat with? What is the point of that? I mean, I know that going into this season, they didn't know that it was going to be the final season, but now that we know that it's the final season, you're like, nothing is going to come of this. And now I'm afraid. Okay, so Bryce left last season, like early on in last season. Reese is still hanging around on the bridge. Nilsson, we found out in dialogue in this episode, has transferred over to Voyager. And Owo and Detmer have been suspiciously absent for 2 episodes now. So I am really afraid that they're just getting rid of, or slowly shifting out, these characters in favor of this new batch. And I don't see why they're doing that. I just don't get it.
It may not be that they're shifting them out, but that these actors are just getting better roles with more screen time and more money.
Possibly. I mean, it is possible. I do, but
I hope that is the case.
Yeah,
I hope it is too. But I mean, shoot, now I'm blanking on her name. Owo was in that Hulu series for two or 3 seasons while she was doing Discovery. So I don't know.
They
It
did
just frustrated me.
They did solve the biggest and most pressing mystery of the show, which is what's up with that Tribble. We found out that Tribble that we keep seeing in the corridors is Nilsson's Tribble. And now Christopher has it, and yes, it is neutered. So I feel much better about that. I've been worried about that every time I see that flipping Tribble. Like, what's that Tribble doing there? And why is there just one? So
yes, exactly.
I wrote in my notes last week, if I never hear about Tribbles or prune juice ever again, it'll be too soon.
Matt says, I hope some of these characters carry on in a future Trek series.
If there
that would be nice, because I feel like I will like these new characters, and I certainly want to like. I'm disposed toward liking these new characters, but not at the expense of characters that I already care about for 5 years now. Well, 4 that I want to see more done with.
Well, maybe Detmer and Owo were packing for their new jobs as instructors at the academy.
Yeah,
maybe. You're giving me hope. I don't think it'll happen, but
I don't think so either. But I mean, like, they offhand mentioned Nilsson transferring to Voyager. That would be a big deal for the character. Like, these are the people you came 900 years in the future with, and you've been serving with all this time, to then transfer off and just go off and continue your Starfleet career. I think it means more than it would like if it was a 24th century show. Like, these people were all they had for a while there, and they're the only connection to like their old lives.
Yeah,
it would have been nice to have had a goodbye scene, though.
Yeah, it would have been the most dialogue she's had. It would be another Arium situation.
Right.
True.
Right.
Oh, Arium.
No, but I do really like Rayner. I really like his storyline. For several reasons. One, I think it's like culturally relevant because like it's an older guy having to adapt to the way that younger people do things, which I think resonates in our world. Also, I think it echoes season 1 with Lorca in a way that feels good. Like you kind of want the show to, like, for Deep Space Nine, you can watch the final arc where Kira's in a Starfleet uniform and training the Cardassians to fight terrorism, and then go back to the beginning when she hated Starfleet and hated the Cardassians. You know what I mean? And you really feel like you've watched a story there. And so I think that having this sort of Lorca type character, who Burnham even said like she got a second chance, which was from Lorca. But he was sort of like ran an overall, and they actually end up terrorizing them by the end. But now this crew is taking in this guy who's very Lorca-ish, like old school. And I like that part of it. And also just on a personal level, I mean, I really am related to this character because this is what he's going through. I've actually been going through in real life for like 8 years. So I've enjoyed watching his story so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes.
All right, Matt has a good point. He says we could have a 32nd century Star Trek Voyager with Robert Picardo coming back as the Doctor.
I'm completely okay with that.
To that, I say, please have the Doctor be an instructor at Starfleet Academy.
Yes.
Oh my God, that would be so amazing to have Tilly and the Doctor as the 2 of the leads on this new show.
Indeed.
Oh my God, that would be so incredible.
It would be. I'm not holding out my hope for it, but
no,
it would be
I'm
cool.
not either. I'm not either.
Yeah. So what are you guys thinking about Rayner?
Oh, I like him.
I really enjoyed the scene where Tilly was talking to him in the bar with the Frankie bartender, and he just like rattled off things about people, and I was like, oh, oh, okay, he was paying attention until he's like, you're just reading people. That's not getting to know them. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Just so
Yeah.
you can analyze people. That's not the same as connecting with them. And I agree
Yeah.
with that completely. He makes Jellicoe look warm. And I find that very interesting because even when Jellicoe was introduced, he at least talked about his son or his son, I think, or daughter had drawn a picture. I mean, as much of a jerk as Jellicoe was. Also, I thought it was something Rainer said, and I agree with you, Charles. This is real life. Is he said, yeah, I had a shorthand with my crew. They were used to it. I'm thinking, I bet a whole bunch of them think he was a straight up ass.
Yeah.
And they had to deal with him. That doesn't mean they,
Yeah.
because there's efficient and then there's that, whatever that
Yeah.
was, you
Mhm.
know.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, he was in command long enough. I'm sure he had his crew whittled down to the people who operate well with his command style.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
some like the squeaky wheels are getting shipped out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not getting
Yeah.
greased. Like he's gonna get rid of them or they're gonna leave.
Mhm.
And I'm sure had his crew sort of fine tuned. But and I mean, it's worth pointing out too that he's not wrong. They are on a mission. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like when he makes a good point. Like, do you need me walking around the ship introducing myself to all the crew while we're in the middle of this red directive? You know,
Right.
Well, and then that shades of Jellicoe again, because then it goes back to when you say you're in a crisis, do your job, but then you get somebody on the other side who says, yeah, but the people kind of need to know you're there. You know, they kind of need to know that you trust them. You're right. It's not always wrong, but it's just different, I guess.
Mhm.
It's a way to say
Yeah.
it.
And I mean, it's tough. I mean, just he's dealing with a new boss who has the
Right.
job that he had 2 days ago,
Yeah.
and who's
Mhm.
biologically is like 20 years younger than him. She was born like 900 years ago. But as far as experience wise and age wise, that he's been doing this way longer,
Mhm.
and now he's got to sort of swallow his pride and hopefully learn things from them. And I'm looking forward to seeing him grow. I don't think they would be introducing him just for this little project to fail.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be good.
All right.
Yeah. In one of the scenes, this is jumping a little bit forward to Saru and T'Rina.
Mm.
Go ahead.
There was a scene where they're doing like the negotiating basically, and there was a quick flash to a number of the people that were at the table, and one of them looked kind of snaky and
Yeah.
had sort of like
The cobra.
Is that a modern
It looked like a Soleil. They have like the cobra
That's what I
type
was
head.
gonna say.
Yeah, it looked like
Yeah.
one of the Soleil, like a modern and one that's good that you can recognize.
Right.
And it was different. It wasn't green, but
Right.
it was a little more fleshy looking. And yeah, I thought that was a Soleil, and I thought it looked, and it even had like the little robe thing.
Yes.
Kind of like those Soleil had. It better not be something else because that's a great update of the Soleil, I thought.
I agree. I went back. I mean, I watched the episode twice today. So the second time I was waiting for that scene to come by and I paused it and I was studying him and he looks so cool. And when I saw it this morning, I thought, I bet you that was supposed to be a Soleil. And then I came back to it the second time after work today and I was like, 100%. I was so excited. That's a hell of a makeup job to do for somebody who was on screen for a second and a half.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I mean, it looked like it was practical, maybe with some digital updates. I hope
Could
so,
be.
because if it's practical, they can stick them in scenes all the time.
Right. It looked practical.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Me too. I want to see an Antikin now. I want to see him
I
go
know,
about with a
me
net.
too. Right.
Well, what do we think about Saru and his new job?
I think he's gonna get bored.
Okay.
I can see that because a lot of these people in this show are relatively well. They're like even Tilly. She hasn't done a whole lot, but she's going to be an instructor. And like we were talking about some of the. I mean, they've done a lot. They've been out there for 4 or 5 years, but yeah, I think Saru's got a lot of life left in him before he would really become an ambassador. So I thought the same thing for Veronica. I think he's good at it. It's obvious he's really good at it, but he might find it a little boring in time. I absolutely loved because I was writing seriously. They're not doing a stupid argument where they're going to have a stupid breakup. Because he won't tell her, because you know how many shows and movies and soap operas where somebody just won't tell him, and he was actually going down that road where he wasn't going to tell her that dude's name Duvin had talked to him, and I was like, man, you're gonna have one of these stupid breakups that make no sense. And then he said something to you, didn't he? And I love that. And then I love the fact that she said, what made you think basically you need to take care of me? And he's like, oh, it's all over. She's like, dude, we just had a fight. I mean, translating, it happens. And maybe for Vulcan to say
maturity.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping they give him a little more challenging diplomatic things going forward. This is kind of an introduction to show what his new job is. But the guy's like, we need a star base. We need security. He's like, well, we can't do a star base. How about more patrols? And everybody's like, aye.
Except for like 3 people.
Then he has that look to T'Rina like, nailed it.
But it was like the whole episode was about the relationship and 1 3-minute scene about his actual job.
Right. See, what I would like to do, because like the whole thing about the progenitors is that all of these different races are related in some way. So I'd like to tie in what he's doing with the story arc.
Right.
Like we were talking about last week, we need to up the stakes and have more people find out about this than just, these 2 folks that are chasing them around or chasing each other around. But then I kind of flash back because I've said this before, and I'm not a popular opinion, but I think Saru was a terrible captain. He made bewildering command choices that didn't work out, but also he was super easily manipulated. And when they were in that hunt for the source of the burn back in season 3, and Osira tricked him into thinking that she was going to attack his home planet, and he was like, abandon the mission, go back to my home planet. And they're like, no, we can't do that. And then the same thing again this time. This dude walks up and he's like, this is going to hurt T'Rina's thing. You should, and so and immediately he's just like, T'Rina, I've been thinking, and we like, dude, would you stop letting people lead you around?
Yeah.
That was consistent with his character.
True.
Well, it was, but also I feel like it made sense in this one, at least just because he is walking into a situation that he's brand new at, and he doesn't really understand all the political implications of all the different things, and you don't know who to not trust.
Right. No, that's
true.
Yeah.
Now he's learned to measure this guy. If any information that comes from that dude. Yeah.
Well, and generally he's gonna have to get better at playing the political game.
Oh yeah.
Than just the first guy, like, well, man, your girlfriend's gonna be in trouble if you do this. And he's like, oh, I don't want to do that then. I did love her response where she's like, first off, I don't know what makes you think I need a caretaker.
Yeah.
And also, if we're engaged and I don't announce it, that's way worse.
Right.
And we have nothing to hide. Like, all solid points.
Yeah.
Matt says, I love the way T'Rina set Saru straight about handling the Vulcan purists.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I just love the dynamic between those two.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's
so
and adorable.
low key.
Yeah, absolutely. And they suit each other really well.
In that meeting, my ears did prick up, and they mentioned the brain, who still seemed to be a problem.
But we also got a good mention at the end of the episode, and we're going into Zenkethi territory next week.
Yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
Maybe. Or they might just say, we're in Zenkethi territory.
I know.
But I mean, to be fair, they did it on Deep Space Nine. They mentioned the Zenkethi several times. We never
They did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They have mentioned the Breen several weeks in a row now.
Yes, they have.
I mean, it might be possible that they're leading up to a Breen thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, I would love to see the brain.
Elaine says Saru's also very new at love and relationships like this, and that can be tricky too.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, that's what he basically said. He doesn't know he doesn't understand conflict in relationships. And I have dated people who've been basically where they've always had fights, and they just don't know that sometimes having a fight means you just get mad. You may not talk for a minute, and then it's fine. Some children have been raised by parents who don't know that you can get yelled at and it's not going to be followed by getting hit or something.
True.
So I think he was actually a little skittish like that.
And I don't hate Saru, to be clear. I just think he's going to have to get savvier at this political game if he's going to make it. And I hope we see that. I hope that happens on the show.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you also, the thing what you're saying about Saru, Charles, too, is we also know on the other side is when Saru loses his temper, he's kind of frightening because he's got that super strength, super speed. So I'm afraid if he doesn't learn, some people who don't learn to balance, they blow up a lot. Like I can see him blowing up.
He has super strength and super speed, and he also has those quills that can blow up drones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see him losing it in the council meeting?
It would be kind of funny though if that Vulcan guy comes back to him and try it again, and he like pops his quills out. And like, never mind.
Hey, did that guy remind you of Vorik?
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. He seemed very well cast to be a Vulcan. They both.
He was great.
Yeah,
I liked him a lot.
Yeah. Well, circling back to the Trill thing, because it made me laugh because they had that scene where the Trill guy's like, "Oh, don't worry about us. Trill security can handle it."
Oh gosh.
And then
yeah.
like 2 scenes later, one of the bad guys is walking around in one of their cloaks. Like,
Oh yeah, that's what you said. It was
sucks.
going to come up later. I love it, man. Cloaks.
I was like, now how did that happen? Come on.
From Star Wars to fantasy to Star Trek, all you need is a cloak. Just pull a hood over your head and nobody can find you.
Yeah.
How does she get? And not to mention, that is the most sacred place on the planet of Bajor. That pool, literally.
Or Trill.
Yeah. Because they said even Bajorans will try to steal those symbiotes. Remember that DS9 episode? I keep doing that. Yeah. Remember the DS9 episode with that crazy guy with the Dax symbiote? Because a lot of Trill want those symbiotes.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. Then she was just there, and then she even put a thing on Gray. I was like, wow, yeah, so much for your security. You're right.
It just made me laugh because he had just been saying, like, oh no, Trill security is top notch. Don't worry about us.
Right. So the whole episode sort of wraps up with Gray giving this big soliloquy about connection and meaning, and he just kind of goes on with this breathy, sort of very slow, meaningful delivery, and then the Guardian says, "Thank you, Gray." And what I was wanting to hear was, "Thank you, Gray," but all I wanted to know was whether you want pizza or tacos for dinner.
Right. Speaking of the Trill, so I guess that old lady died, and the symbiote just swam off.
Yeah, because they didn't show that. I was the same, and Charles, I rewound it, and I was looking for her body even, or something. And you're right, I just saw a Trill swimming away. It's like, I guess she died. Yeah, it was weird.
The body got eaten by Mothra.
That was really weird because, again, going back to DS9, when Curzon died, they showed a quick scene of Curzon's body, and it was like, it should be a somber moment, when you move from one to the other, when they have time, when somebody doesn't get killed in an accident. So I was the same way. I was like, oh, I guess that's the one. And then they also mentioned that, she said she wanted to rest, the host wanted to rest. I also thought it was very interesting where they said symbiotes living to be 800 is unusual, but not unheard of. So now we know they have a license. Yeah, evidently.
And that might confirm that Dax is dead.
Yeah.
Because Dax was like 300 years old already on DS9.
Yeah.
I did like that we got a little more info about what's going on with these scientists. I guess the Federation president assembled these scientists, and then they found something that was sort of awe-inspiring and killed one of them. So they lied and said they didn't find anything, and then they set up this elaborate thing because it was the Dominion War was going on. That's just a few years after.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I mean, like I said before, like if Sloan or Decatur or somebody was to find that, they absolutely would have used it. Like Section 31 was infecting viruses. You know what I mean? Like they were doing all kind of stuff during the Dominion War.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the race would have been between Section 31, the Cardassians, and frankly, the Founders, if they had known about it. So that could have been interesting.
So this thing that they're looking for, what the hell can it possibly be? Well, I mean, we're talking about, I'm talking about in a narrative sense, in the Star Trek universe, we are talking about the origin of life. So this is basically a God engine that is, how do they expect to portray this on television? Not its size or anything like that, but just the profundity of it.
I would imagine rays of CGI.
Because just the fact that they seeded the universe with the base DNA from which we all come, there's something else. It's like a Genesis device or something. It's got to have some kind of weird power. It's not just formula, I think.
Yeah, because not just seeding but it would have had also direct evolution for billions of years. Because on Earth, a lot went into the fact that we look like we do now, in a lot of circumstances. That it's a long shot if you're just seeding the universe. The fact that everyone turned out, not everyone, but almost everyone turned out basically 2 eyes, 10 fingers, etc. But also, what it's really going to come down to is probably what Stamets was saying, because he threw in at the end there, and also it could reanimate someone from the dead.
Yeah.
When you said that, I was like, uh-oh.
We know how Discovery usually handles foreshadowing, so who's going to die this year?
No, they're going to bring back Quajon.
Maybe they might bring back Quajon, but it seemed to me like one of the crew's going to die, and they're going to reanimate them with this machine at the end. That's my guess.
Oh, it'll be effing Burnham. You know it. Come on.
Maybe it might be, but I feel like if it might, because then they can have like a resurrection. But it seems to me like Burnham should be the one doing it. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
So it'll be Book that dies.
That was my guess.
I mean, that's the obvious pick.
Right.
I think he's going to go through something where he's like, oh, I could bring back Quajon and his nephew or whatever. And
right.
He's going to get it.
Could be. Yeah.
Mothra didn't take him out. Maybe Rodan will.
I kind of think all these like the big CGI monsters all kind of look the same. But it makes me think of the animated series when they would always beam down to planets and there's a dragon there.
Yes. Yeah. And all the dragons made the same sound effect.
Yeah, everything sounded like Godzilla, or some of them sound like Godzilla.
Yeah.
Speaking of Michael Burnham, one moment that I actually liked, and it was I think it was 3 moments with Rayner, and I don't know if it was a Burnham moment or a Sonequa Martin Green moment. When he said, "I'm used to being the captain," the look she gave him.
Yeah.
Let's just say I've seen that in my house. I saw that growing up. I've seen it in my marriage. That look, it was somewhat of a smile and I don't know what. And it was a really real look. I loved it. And then like Veronica said, when Tilly dressed him down, I thought it was earned. And then freaking Jet. And she's like, what did she say? There was chips last time or whatever she said last time. Then she just looked at him. And I think he's like, I don't know what to do with this one. Or maybe he likes her now.
Yeah, I thought that they would get along.
Yeah.
Like they'd end up being just acerbic buddies together. I did like when she gave him that look after he said, like, yo, I used to have your job. And he was like, yeah, I meant that as a joke to break the ice. Like he could tell that didn't come off as a joke.
It did not. Yeah. She was great in that moment. I like that. I hope that she and Book get back together. I mean,
they're going to, and then he's going to die, and then she's going to be torn about whether to resurrect him or not.
Yeah,
I've written half the season just like that.
Well, and I'm also curious because as we were all talking about, they didn't know the show was ending when they did this 5th season. Then they Frakes and them brought them back to film whatever the series ender is. So I wonder how that plays into resolutions.
Yeah, we won't find that out for a few weeks.
Yeah,
but no, I thought this was a good one. It wasn't a great episode, but it's kind of like I said about, we watched that prophecy episode of Voyager the other day, and I said that it's a good Star Trek of the Week episode. It's and I thought this was the same.
It was more balanced than last week because last week the emotional moments were good, but they always felt like we talked about. They felt like it stopped. Like you feel it kind of like when Saru was talking about making his decision, and Burnham did the I'm gonna miss you. It was a good scene, but it felt uneven, and if things felt a little more even this episode.
I need to find out what that quarry's called because it's like the new Vasquez Rocks because it was Talos a few years ago. Like it's been so many planets now. Like it's like a character in Star Trek of its own.
Absolutely.
All right, well we're getting to time already.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one. So next week, I mean, all we really know is they're heading off towards Zinkethi space, and the title is called Face the Strange, which I would guess is a deliberate reference to the Changes, the Bowie song.
Well, there's the titles this season. There's at least 3 Bowie references.
Okay. Well, that's not an accident then.
That is not an accident. Somebody's a Bowie fan.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's Michelle Paradise. Who knows?
That could be.
Yep.
All right, Alan, where can people find more of you?
Well, I do another podcast called Modern Musicology, and we have got some great interviews coming up in the next few weeks. So get on board for that. And Doctor Who A to Z. We just recorded an episode where we reviewed something. Curse of Peladon from the 1970s.
Oh, good.
And before that, we just did a 12th Doctor story. So get on board with that too.
And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on X and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about us, Veronica?
FeltNerdy.com.
And
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yep. So join us on Thursdays. We go live at 8 p.m. Eastern talking about the latest Star Trek episode. We'll be talking about Discovery for the next several weeks. And then depending if they drop Prodigy, maybe Prodigy after that. Otherwise, we'll go back to legacy Star Trek topics.
Yes.
All right, Veronica, do you have a closing for us this week?
Yes, and I was trying to find the exact words because it came to me, and then I was like, I don't remember the exact words, but that's fine. I have a quote. I prepared a quote.
Go for it.
Man, I sound like one of those woo-woo people.
Okay. That was close. That was in the neighborhood.
That wasn't the exact quote.
No.
You're in the neighborhood.
We're a family-friendly show here. So.
Sometimes.
Most of the time, unless I get really riled up. If they've done something to Detmer or Olo.
Or cancel
Anyway.
Prodigy.
All right, everybody take care. See you next Thursday.
See you.
Bye.